Welcome to the Hall of Echoes of the Grand Library of the city of Zahra. This is where reports arrive of discoveries, expeditions, and events already shaping the world. Some are confirmed, others survive only through witness. I am Idris Nahir, Keeper of Echoes. I mark what is known and I name what is uncertain, because silence is also a choice. These are the matters before Zahra. Many of you arrived yesterday for the latest symposium covering the aftermath of the Dreamer's Drift Plague and found the doors closed and locked. First, I would like to apologize for any inconvenience by not alerting you to my absence earlier. It is usually a priority to inform kinfolk when a symposium is going to be delayed, but I must admit I was caught unaware. Yes, the news of what has happened to the Malik has spread like wildfire throughout our streets. But I dare say there is something far more sinister happening underneath our noses. This is my thinking because I have been the target of an attack. Mere moments prior to taking the stage for yesterday's symposium, I was attacked by an assassin. I know it is shocking to hear. In all of my years working with the Grand Library, I have never been subject to such indecency. I may speak my mind and share information that others might want hidden, but none have ever thought to kill me for those reasons. I know many of you have questions. I certainly do myself. Unfortunately, right now, we don't have many answers. Do I think it is convenient that after breaking the news to the rest of the city about the heirs of the new dawn, that I have been subject to an attack? No. It is my belief that I have uncovered some kind of information in my own research that has caught the attention of these people. The assassin who attempted to take my life is currently being held and questioned. They have been quiet about their motives and reasoning, but I suspect they will be broken in due time. But for now, I assure you, I am well. You might have noticed entering the Hall of Echoes today that security at the Grand Library has increased. Another attempt will not be made at my life. I believe those behind it are well aware of my abilities now. Even though this is harrowing news in and of itself, the content of today's symposium is bleak. I fear the entire city has been awash in chaos ever since the onslaught of the Dreamer's Drift. What has befallen recently is no different. I will begin by reading the journals that document what has transpired over the past few days. These were handed to me by Banu Asrar judges themselves. Names have been changed to protect the authors of these journals. I'll not delay any further. Banu Asrar Decree signed by Judge Redress. Zahra has fallen victim to a mimetic plague that has taken the lives of thousands of our own. The Dreamer's Drift ran through our city's streets and spread from kinfolk to kinfolk. In the wake of that tragedy, we have lost many of our own. But it does not take much observation to notice how the upper echelon of society have hardly been touched. It is true that the poor and the more vulnerable of our city were the ones slaughtered in the streets and burned in mass. It is their blood that stains the cobblestone. How is that just, I ask you? I don't think any of us would be able to answer. We of the Banu Asrar have taken it upon ourselves to launch a thorough investigation into what happened with the plague. Though the exact cause is still unknown, we have focused our efforts on the aftermath. We have paid close attention to how orders were given and decisions were made. This is where we find the most fault. While many kinfolk have argued that the Malik made orders for the benefit of the city, we cannot see it that way. Journals and documents have been read in front of the masses, documenting the chaos and turmoil that unfolded after the Dreamer's Drift. But one thing we ask you all to notice is how few aristocrats in the city were harmed. It has come to our attention that the wealthy patriarchs of Zahra received warning of the blockades. They were told to shelter in place, and they were given the opportunity to head to their heavily guarded homes before the blockades were locked. And as the rest of the city was left wondering what was going on, they had some semblance of an idea. An argument was made by Judge Witness that perhaps they were told because they might possess the skills required to defeat the plague. But as we saw ourselves, the plague was defeated by regular citizens. It was them who banded together and organized the tattoo lines, immobilizing the infected and getting them help. Still, as I read this decree, tattoos are being crafted for the infected, and it is likely to go on this way for weeks. Perhaps this could have been handled differently. I don't begin to suggest that the Malik had an easy decision, but the lives of every kinfolk killed prematurely to avoid the spread of the virus are on his hands. It is the unanimous decision of the Banu Asrar tribunal that the Malik be found guilty of his crimes. His punishment is death. Journal of Nadia of the Other's Hand, Thief of Righteousness, Shadow Master. Many kinfolk imagine a successful thief as someone who can sleep unseen through windows and tiptoe over rooftops undetected. That might be true in some regards, but the differences between a successful thief and a prolific one are vast. The greatest thieves are the ones who can erase themselves before a crime is even committed. That is where I come in. Working with the Other's Hand is dangerous. The aristocrats and guild masters of the city are all very protective of their artifacts. They keep an eye out for us. All of them hear the horror stories of aristocrats hiring new help, only to discover they're agents of our people. Of course, this has resulted in many of our targets thinking proactively and running for forensic occultism checks on new employees. We have had to learn how to adjust to this. That has been an undertaking that I have largely overseen for the Other's Hand. I have a deep understanding of forensic occultism, and through my connections with the Wylde Chamber and the Storm Shapers, I know a lot about their records. The truth of the matter is that nearly every kinfolk in Zahra is accounted for. All of us have some sort of humoric profile being kept in a record or a vault somewhere. Whenever a crime is committed, hair or blood or part of a kinfolk is taken from a scene and held against these records to prove guilt. If we are going to successfully kill the Malik and get away with it, we must be ghosts. Even writing that sentence down feels like a challenge. Many Malik have been killed over the years. Some of them were even assassinated. So it is not like our group would be the first to ever undertake something like this. But most of the time, the assassins are caught and killed. That is what we must avoid. The first meeting of our company, I suppose we should call it, was interesting. Each of us were chosen by the judges of the Banu Asrar. There is myself, a hungry Adder's Hand thief. And I have deemed myself the de facto leader as no one else wanted to take the role. Farid belongs to the Royal Society and made it clear upon meeting him that he has never done anything like this before. That is not particularly surprising. He seems like a very clean-cut man. But of course, he owes a favor. He was chosen because he is highly skilled with both grammaturgy and Daimagora. Plus his ranking in the society will help us get far. Yusuf is the Banu Asrar's own. Though I have never met him, I've heard his name before. This won't be his first assassination, and I'm sure it will be him wielding the dagger. The final member of our group is Salim. She is somewhat of a mystery to me still. She did not share her true titles, and I don't fully understand what her qualifications for this task are. But she was chosen by the same kinfolk who chose me, so who am I to question? We spoke for hours about the best way to approach this. We all agreed, though the most important step to ensure we're not immediately caught and killed would be erasing our own humoric profiles. The locations of importance to target would be the Grand Library, the Royal Treasury, the Storm Shapers Collective, hospitals, Wylde Chamber, archives, and a dragon shrine within the city. For this task, we take a divide and conquer route. Plus, the less time we spend together, the better. Discretion is key. My targets are the Wylde Chamber and the Storm Shapers Collective, two people I have connections with already. The Storm Shapers don't keep profiles on everyone, only wealthy kinfolk. They do that just to verify information before making a large transaction. I am sure they've been burned by confidence artists many times in the past. The only one in our company who I needed to look for was Farid. My contact with the Storm Shapers, Uriel, father of Taya, has worked with me before for Fulgurite. Parting with some Fulgurite now is advantageous to us going forward, so it was a simple choice. I have worked with him enough in the past to know that my Fulgurite is more than enough for his silence. Even after the news breaks that the Malik is dead, he'll have no reason to assume I was a part of it. And even if he does think to bring my name up, I have information about him that he would not want shared. I won't write that down because I know these journals will be read in the symposium. But Uriel, if you are in attendance, know I can ruin you. I found Farid's profile in the vault with relative ease and stole it. That was the simple part of my job. The Wylde Chamber will be much trickier. See, I have personally made many of the aristocrats holding titles within the chamber very upset. But the chamber is perhaps the most important of all the locations because they keep records on everyone. They do it to keep detailed hereditary lines of kinfolk throughout the city. They're probably the exact kinfolk who know the truth of every bastard child, and they can trace bank records between them with ease to know whether or not aristocratic fathers are doing their due diligence. This is more so to control scandals than anything, I believe. But if I'm going to get anywhere with the chamber, I need leverage. So my first point of business was to visit the spice markets. An old friend of mine, Dirk, son of Myrna, weaver of truths, has a shop. He's a hoard keeper and is always listening. Without sharing all of the details of my plan, I told him what I needed. My humoric profile from the chamber. It's a partial truth because I've destroyed mine long ago, but I needed everyone else's. I won't share the secrets I dealt him to get my leverage, but he told me of an affair one of the Wylde chamber members has been having. Dirk has apparently seen them roaming through the market streets late at night embracing. I'll be withholding those names for the time being, but this information was promptly put to use. After I gained access to the Wylde chamber vault, I sought out all of our humoric profiles. I double-checked to make sure a new one was not made for me, and it was not there. With all of them stolen, I returned to the River Jog Inn and awaited the others in the Banu Asrar's usual cellar. I am here now, the second to arrive from their mission. Yusuf has returned from the hospitals and obtained profiles for each of us. Now we just await news of Farid and Salim. Journal of Farid of the Royal Society of Zahra, son of Jana, spirit binder, studious mage. Being part of the Royal Society, I spend a fair amount of time at the Grand Library. I would be lying if I said I did not find them to be hypocritical. They criticize those of the Royal Society for hoarding knowledge, but I see nothing different with them. The guardians of the vault keep their most valuable knowledge locked away beneath wards and glyphs to ensure no kinfolk has access to them. They say it is for protection, but I doubt every artifact housed down there is for that purpose. Being involved with this crime is precarious for me. The last thing I want to do is get myself wrapped up in some political scandal. I don't even have anything against the Malik. In fact, my family has come to know him quite well over the years, and I like him. But the Banu Asrar needed someone with credentials, and I owed a favor. Years ago, I was treated unfairly by a superior in the Orrery of Insight. He took credit for a discovery of mine, and I could not let it go. Now, I look back at something so silly with regret, because in order to get my revenge against them, I had to sign away my life. This is my penance. I am the one who will be opening every door along the way. I will have to get 3 kinfolk who have no business in the Palace of Light to somehow seem like they do. First, we have to worry about our humoric profiles. I am gathering ours from the Grand Library. I've spent most of the day doing what I would normally do here. I've sat on lectures, roamed the library stacks, and spoken with colleagues just as I normally would. Later, if anyone says they saw me here, there will be no doubt that my presence was normal. After spending the entire day in the library, I waited until the sun sank far below the horizon to descend into the archives. I did not need to use any tricks or convince anyone to help me because my title and credentials are enough to access. When asked about what I was doing down there, I said I was merely doing some research for a project with the Royal Society. Many of us are already secretive enough about our work that most don't even think to inquire more. Actually entering the archive for the first time was fascinating. If I had been entering under different circumstances, I could have spent hours studying the glass ampules where samples were kept. Suspended within each of them were the profiles, reacting as if they were almost leaving as I moved by them. From what I understand, the ampules that the profiles are kept in are some of the most advanced in the city. A majority of the profiles kept in the archives are those belonging to grammaturges and dimagorists. While most of us use our abilities for good, there are plenty who use them for evil. It's that reason that each of us are forced to give our profiles before we begin studying. Only 2 of us had profiles within the Grand Library, myself and Nadia. I had to use grammaturgy to disable a few words before pulling them from the shelves. By the time I was finished pilfering the goods, my skin was crawling with anxiety. Nobody seemed to pay me any mind as I left with my bag, much heavier than it was entering that afternoon. When I returned to the inn, everyone else had already completed their task. We retrieved all traces of our humoric profiles from all the locations. None of us seemed to encounter many dangers along the way, which I was thankful for. This was only the first step of many. The easier the better. With all of the profiles in front of us, the next step was to destroy them. Nearly everyone looked at me simultaneously when it came time for that. I thought for a while about the ways that the profiles could be permanently destroyed. Everything I thought of would leave behind something that could be eventually recovered, but an idea struck me on how to hide them. All of us gathered in a circle as I used grammaturgy to create a glyph that was connected to each of us like a key. Everybody sat silently watching me as I created a small void in the ground below us. Nadia was the most hesitant to hand over the profiles to house within this void. But then I explained that all 4 of us would need to gather once again and perform this ritual in order for it to reopen for anyone to retrieve the profiles. It is not something I could do alone. Therefore, I would not be using it against any of them. It took a little bit of convincing, but eventually they all agreed and we stored the profiles inside. I closed it up and we immediately began talking about the next phase. Journal of Yusuf of the Banu Asrar, Death Warden. Of all of these assassinations I've been a part of, this one might be the most complex. We are about to attack the leader of Zahra, and that would require preparation. But all of the different phases of this are superfluous in my opinion. The only thing we're doing is cluing other kinfolk into our actions. How many saw us retrieving the humoric profiles? And how many more are going to see us as we undergo this next phase? With phase 1 complete, it is time to move on to phase 2, acquiring everything we need. Of course, the Banu Asrar have many artifacts and items they could lend out, but none that we need in particular. With everything we have learned from our own company, as well as the information given to us by the Banu Asrar, there are a few things we need to access the Malik. The first is a royal signet ring that is going to allow us to bypass many of the grammaturgical locks. The second item is a glyph that Farid is going to have to learn. It's one that has long been forbidden, but he believes he has the right credentials to learn it. The palace is constantly filled with kinfolk, both residents and employees. Kinfolk who are going to try to keep strangers out. The glyph he is going to learn is going to help us control them by temporarily enthralling their minds to let us pass before they forget us. I can understand why it is forbidden. Nadia already has access to a dragon essence familiar through a connection of hers with the Horde Keepers. She will be able to control that to try to find a secret passageway so we can move stealthily through the palace. Dragon essence familiars have a way of finding hidden things like that. Finally, the most important item we need is a spirit. Killing the Malik is going to be difficult for many reasons, but the foremost is the fact that he has a pain eater somewhere in the city. Pain eaters for royals are always kept secret, so we do not know who they are. There is a connection somewhere that forces some pain eater hidden away in their house to suddenly feel pain every time the Malik stubs his toe. Any poison he receives, any stab wound, crossbow, anything at all that goes directly to them. We would effectively have to kill 2 kinfolk to kill 1 if we cannot separate this connection, and I do not want the blood of an innocent kinfolk on my hands. Finding that spirit is left to me. I am no Timagorist by any means, but I know plenty. For the most part, Timagora is sanctioned by the city of Zahra, and kinfolk who practice these arcana are careful to do so through practical means. But wherever there is a need in the underground, there is someone who can procure things for you. It would not be the first time I have needed to sever a connection with a pain eater. I think that is why the Banu Asrar chose me for this mission to begin with. Delia, Mother of Ray, Spirit Finder, has been a long-time ally of mine through the Banu Asrar. She was the first kinfolk I thought to go to, and of course she was willing to help for the right price. I told her exactly what I needed, and she assured me she would be able to find the spirit that she could bind to an anchor for me to use. As a skilled Timagorist and spirit dealer, Delia keeps track of all sorts of unique and strange ways that creatures and kinfolk might die in Zahra. She told me that she knew of a dying woman that we must visit. We walked to a shabby home in one of the poor districts of Zahra. There were no guards at the door, and no kinfolk in the home other than an old dwarven woman dying alone in her bed. She was too weak to speak, and Delia asked me to make sure that we were not interrupted as she performed the necessary tasks. I sat with her as she performed the ritual. Both of us were together in a darkened room with incense burning between us as she closely held to one of the woman's rings. I have never witnessed someone performing Timagora up close before, but it is strangely beautiful. We spent 2 days in that shabby house while the woman, Ruha, as I discovered going through some of her things, died quietly in her sleep. Delia made her comfortable and sat with her, telling her that she was not alone as she passed, all while wrapping the ring in clothing and lace belonging to Ruha. When the ritual was complete, she handed me the ring and told me that Ruha's spirit was anchored within it. She was one half of a partnership that lasted nearly 80 years. When her husband died during the Dreamer's Drift, she was so overtaken by grief that it was her own demise. She died of a broken heart for her lost love because of the neglect of the Malik. The pain she felt was strong enough to sever a connection built entirely on pain, such as that with the Malik and his pain eater. With the ring in hand, I had everything I needed. I returned to the inn to report back to everyone else. Nadia was already present with the dragon familiar she obtained running around her shoulders like an excited kitten. I will admit that it felt like a novel experience. In all of the time I've lived in Zahra, I've never been so up close to one of them. Farid had the glyph he needed as well. He found a bastardized version written in a tome in the Grand Library. He was able to create a new one that seemed to accomplish all of the goals he wanted the original glyph for. He carved it into stone a few times and tested it on us, getting us to do simple tasks and then forget about them. We were amazed at how easily it worked. Before we enact our actual plan in a few days, he'll have to carve it into some sort of portable item to use it swiftly. Grammaturgy might be effective, but it is not usually quick. As I sit here writing this, we are simply waiting for Salim to return with her item, the signet ring. Journal of Salim, Unknown Titles. Obtaining the signet ring was far easier than I thought it would be. It pays to have connections, but these are not things I'm willing to share with the rest of my company quite yet. Soon enough, they'll realize exactly who I am. But until then, I need them to think that I am simply a mysterious criminal who wants to remain private. In a lot of ways, that is the truth. The signet ring was given to me by a friend who also has a vested interest in the Malik's death. They worked closely with the Malik and pulled the ring from their personal jewelry. I walked back to the inn after retrieving it. I felt the weight of it in my pocket like it was going to pull me to the earth. I am excited about this plan. I think it's about time that this city saw some change, and getting to be the instrument of that is invigorating. Soon enough, chaos is going to reign in the streets of Zahra once again, and I cannot say I'm disappointed. I thrive under these conditions. I am at my happiest when the kinfolk of the city don't know what's left from right. Everyone is always too focused on themselves to focus on the big picture. So much happens under kinfolk's noses that they would never begin to understand. When I got back to the River Jug Inn, I made a big show of pretending like retrieving the ring was difficult. I cannot have them knowing quite yet that I have a connection so close to the Malik already. When Nadia asked me about what I had to go through, I lied to her. I told her that I had been stalking the palace all day looking for one of the high-ranking guards. I made a big show of explaining how I stalked him home like a panther prowling after its prey. I broke in, lurking in the shadows, waiting to see him take the ring off and stash it in a lockbox. Only then did I pick the lock and steal the ring, leaving no trace that I was ever there. Everyone peppered me with questions about all the other things I saw at the palace, and I made up details. It's not like I've never been there before. In fact, I used to work there. Yes, a mere 6 months ago I was a chambermaid. Things have changed for me quite a bit. I never would have imagined I would have the power that I do now. And soon enough, so many other kinfolk like me are going to wake up to that realization too. We are not going to need kinfolk like the Malik around much longer. Journal of Nadia of the Other's Hand, Thief of Righteousness, Shadow Master. So far, everything has gone according to the plan. I don't know if I should be comforted by that or alarmed. Things never go exactly as planned. especially not with things as big as this. I mean, we're about to assassinate the Malik after all. There has to be something that throws this whole plan off. I suppose nobody could even begin to understand what we are planning. The Malik is well guarded and very rarely are actual attempts made at his life. They know that his death would cause chaos, and that's often more trouble than it is worth. It's not like killing the Malik is going to end this aristocracy. No, instead his son is going to take his place. That is something I am well aware of already. The fact of the matter is that the very Malik we are going to be killing is guilty of killing thousands of kinfolk throughout our city. He is the one who gave orders to have them slaughtered and burned, some of whom were burned alive. He should consider himself lucky if he is not being subject to the plague himself and forced to endure everything those who lost their lives because of Kim did. Georgios is going to take his place. I cannot predict how that is going to fare for our city, but that is not my decision anymore. I was hired for this job and I will carry it out. Since the first steps of our plan have gone so successfully, next begin the third phase, breaking into the palace. Anytime I have ever done a job that requires breaking in anywhere, I am careful about surveillance. It's my favorite part, honestly. I love the watching, the waiting, and studying every routine. It's invigorating. You would be surprised how much you can learn just from watching. All four of us take different stations around the palace. We study the movement of every guard. Each of them have nicknames and descriptions written out on pages. We watch them change shifts, go on rounds. We even pay attention to how often they use the latrine. We understand which guards like to talk between the shifts and which ones simply wave goodbye and head home. After about a day and a half, we have a pretty solid timeline for when we should expect openings. We pay close attention to the other staff in the palace as well. It's not just the guards we'll have to worry about. We will have to worry about the cleaning staff, cooks and servants. Anyone who works at the palace is under obligation to send a warning if they suspect something foul is afoot. The glyph Farid has been working on should take care of some of that. If we can get them just to ignore our presence and forget they saw us, then we can move to the palace with relative ease. It takes a few days before we have a very structured routine for dozens of kinfolk going in and out of the palace. In the off hours, we have been discussing the best ways to get in. I had an idea before the company met the first night that I was more than eager to share. Every kinfolk in the city is upset about the Dreamer's Drift. You would be hard-pressed to find a single kinfolk who has not lost someone they love because of the orders the Malik carried out. Kinfolk want justice. They want him to give answers and explain why he made the decisions he did. Because right now, the Malik thinks that placating everyone and saying it was the only choice is enough, but it is not. So I suggested a protest. It only takes a few mumbled words to the right kinfolk to get the idea seated. Then after that it spreads. The Dwarven Labor Union, bleeding hearts that they are quick to protest for just about anything. The past few days I have been moving between my surveillance of the palace to tea rooms and bars, talking to exhausted workers and reigniting the sentiment that what has happened is not fair. As expected, it went well. Munif of the Dwarven Labor Union, Father of Alda, Union Master, Voice of the Quiet, was the best person to speak to about it. I pretended to be slovenly drunk, spilling mead out the top of my glass as I suggested someone needed to organize a protest. I told him that everyone in the city would show up for it, and he immediately knew that it was true. He promised me that he would get something together because I was right. I pretended like I lost a spouse and cried over their name before downing my drink. I felt a morsel of guilt as I left. He did offer to help because of his own kindness, and I am taking advantage of it. Things like this go against the ethos of the Adder's Hand, but I have a task. The protest is set to take place tomorrow. In all of that chaos, we're going to break into the palace and kill the Malik. Things have gone well so far, but I am still preparing for the worst. I have a bad feeling in my stomach that something is bound to go awry. Journal of Yusuf of the Banu Asrar, Death Warden. Nadia was careful to make sure the protest was secret. The last thing we need is the guards of the palace to suspect something was going to happen and increase their security. For this plan to work, we have to catch them unaware. All four of us gathered outside of the palace an hour before the protest was set to begin. We looked as nonchalant as possible while dozens of laborers arrived with signs. As expected, it caught the attention of the guards and pulled many of them away from their post. I've got to hand it to Nadia. She has some novel ideas. The four of us were careful about approaching, all taking different avenues. A small group of kinfolk sneaking toward one entrance was bound to catch attention. Farid was able to walk through the gate on his own. The guards working immediately recognized him. Several of the Royal Society scholars are close enough with members of the Malik's family that they come and go from the palace frequently. It's our luck that Farid is one. At least he is now. Can't say they'll be too fond of him after the Malik is gone. Salim managed to move through the garden, hiding in the midst of the overgrown plants as the guards were so distracted. Nadia, skilled thief as she is, picked her way into the lock of the guards' barracks. I managed to sneak my way to the side of the palace without being detected, but I found it was close enough to the garden that creeping ivy was moving its way up the glass dome. I managed to wiggle my way beneath it to camouflage me just a bit as I climbed the walls with the aid of my sandals. They were a gift from the tribunal years ago. At least, they gave them to me for another job and I failed to return them. But then again, give a thief and a murderer a pair of gravity-shifting sandals, you're more than likely not going to get them back. And in my defense, I did such a good job on that murder that I deserved a bonus. I managed to open a window on the second floor and climb inside. Before meeting up for the protest, Nadia had all of us study the palace's floor plans. Our goal was to know that we would be entering to different locations, but also be able to find a quick way back to each other. Our agreed upon meeting room would be what was listed as a parlor room on the first floor. The moment I closed the window behind me, I could hear chaos unfolding within the palace. The protest outside was unexpected, and everyone working within the palace was struggling to figure out what to do. The room I was in was empty, but when I opened the door to peek out, I could see staff running around frantically. I waited for the perfect moment to sneak out of the room and run downstairs in search of the parlor. It was my first time ever being inside of the Palace of Light, and it was hard not to focus on how opulent it was. The entire palace looked like it was glittering. Fulgurite shone against the sandstone walls, and the wide domed ceilings let in natural light. All along the walls were mosaics made of beetle shells and fulgurite that I could see made up elegant images of moments in Zahra's history. I wanted to stop and stare, study every inch of it, but I could not. I ran down the stairs, careful not to run into any workers as I made my way to the parlor. Salim was already inside when I arrived. She was grinning from ear to ear while she flipped through a book someone left on the table as if she were here every day. The others arrived shortly after, thankfully not having run into any trouble. Part of the plan was to use the Dragon Essence Familiar to try and find exactly where the Malik was. Nadia took control of that. Using it, she was briefly connected and could see through its eyes as it moved ethereally through the palace. She told the Familiar what its target was, and it used its abilities to find the best path there. Everyone else stood guard as Nadia watched through the Familiar's eyes. Realizing where the Malik was, she told us, but we could not easily walk through the halls to get to the Malik without arousing suspicion. She sent the Familiar through other corridors in search of secret passageways and tunnels we could use. When it found our path, it returned to us. My heart was pounding as we set off. Nadia led the way as we exited the parlor room. We walked toward a service quarter that was empty in all of the chaos. Everyone was gathered out front watching the protest, leaving much of the palace unaffected. Within the servants' quarter was an old entrance to a servants' hall that led to all of the rooms of the palace's residence, one of which, of course, would be the Malik. We moved quietly and slowly through the narrow halls. Dust motes flew around in the air, only visible through tiny holes into other rooms that let in slivers of light. Looking around, I could see that these halls had not been used in quite some time. I could not begin to understand what it was like working at the palace, but I did see thick layers of dust in the corners of the hall. With this much dust in the air, I could only imagine that it's been ages since it had been used for daily use. Looking down at the ground, I saw footprints ahead of us. Recent footprints that cut through the thick dust, letting me know someone else had been there. As quietly as I could, I shared that observation. Everyone else realized that it most likely would not be a good sign, but that it probably would not bode well for what was waiting for us. We tried to find another path, but the Dragon Familiar could not piece together something more effective. In the end, we decided to continue on the path we knew, anticipating that something could go awry. We kept going until we reached the Malik's bedroom. That's where the Familiar saw that he would be. Everyone got in position. Farid held his glyph in his hand to use it on all of the guards in the room for them to leave and forget they ever saw us. I held the ring holding Ruha's spirit in my hand, ready to sever the Malik's connection to his pain eater. Nadia's hand reached for the knob and turned it slowly to test to see if it was locked. She was ready to use the signet ring to unlock it if she needed. She did not have to. The door pushed open, and I watched from behind as she stared into the room with her mouth open. Then I heard the Malik invite all four of us in by name. Nadia obeyed, and standing right behind her in the hall, I followed. The others walked in behind me, and we all stood in silence as the Malik watched us with a gracious grin. He stood in front of a table with 5 seats, each with a cup of tea sitting in front of it. He was expecting us. The entire time, he knew we would be there. Journal of Farid of the Royal Society of Zahra, son of Jannah, spirit binder, studious mage. The Malik was alone. There were no guards standing by the door, no servants pouring tea, just the Malik standing by the table. The moment his eyes landed on me, I felt like I was going to faint. I thought that I would be able to do this, but I was gravely mistaken. The Malik had seen my face, and he made it clear he knew what we were there to do. He gestured for all of us to sit down. He made a point to say each of our names as he did. Nadia was the first to speak up to him to ask about how he knew we were coming. Of course, we should have suspected something like this could happen. Master Nawa'ar of the Circle of 1,000 Threads, Seamstress of Fate, Tower Walker, Oracle of the 9 Locks, is a prolific oracle. He has paid her for quite some time, and she saw us coming. He told us all about her predictions. She saw the threads of fate and realized the Malik could potentially die. When she shared that information with him, of course he wanted more information, and she worked hard to get it. She uncovered who each of us were. She saw every phase of our plan, and she pieced together every drop of information before any of us even knew we would be here today. I looked at Nadia and saw the defeat in her eyes. She works very hard planning a majority of the steps, and as everything was working out, I knew she was proud. She was expecting something bad to happen, but I don't think she was expecting this. Perhaps I should have told someone that the Circle of 1,000 Threads would be an obstacle we might not be able to overcome. But then again, I don't know that I actually wanted this plan to come to fruition. Maybe there was a part of me that wanted someone to intervene. Because right then, knowing that I wasn't going to have a hand in the death of the Malik brought me great comfort. The Malik sat down across from us, and he told us that he knew we could sever him from his pain eater. He also knew that we had every intention of making sure we witnessed his last breath. He was even impressed with how we went about it, telling us that Nawa'ar saw many futures where we got away with it, nobody ever knowing the truth of what happened. He sipped tea casually as he asked us to provide him with a better solution to the Dreamer's Drift than what he came up with. There was not a moment where he seemed upset with us, even knowing that we were there to take his life. Nobody provided him an answer. The truth is, none of us know what we would have done in his position. That's a position I am thankful not to have been in. I'll admit that I do think ordering the infected to be killed in such a hasty manner was perhaps a misstep, but it could not have been an easy decision. Yusuf was the one who broke the silence. He told the Malik to his face that it was not our decision to make, but it was not his either. Too many kinfolk lost their lives because he ordered them killed without even attempting to find a cure. Of course, this opened up a debate between the two of them, where the Malik countered with the fact that many more kinfolk would have been infected if those who had been killed had not been killed. When none of us could provide him with a viable alternative, He stood up and took a deep breath before continuing. He provided us with options. The first option: we could continue with our plan and kill him there. Of course, that would complete the task the Banu Asrar hired us for. He would be dead, and that would be vengeance for all of the lives lost during the Dreamer's Drift. However, in doing so, there would be consequences. The first is that someone would have to succeed him. The obvious choice would be his son Georgios, who has only just come of age. He is young and impetuous. He would not understand what it means to rule over a city as important as Zahra. Of course, peoples like the Wylde Chamber would see him as clay to be molded, and they would support every decision while whispering in his ears. We would be handing the city over to the very kinfolk the Banu Asrar are always fighting against. As he said that, I saw Nadia realizing the truth of his words. Without even speaking to her, I saw how readily she was willing to give up this path. The alternative to Georgios would be his nephew, Amru. He is older and wiser, but he would lean very favorably towards the guilds. Without saying the words outright, he made it clear that Amru would do whatever benefited him the most. Whoever would be willing to line his pockets would gain favor in the city, which is a dangerous precedent to set. Say what you will about the Malik, but he has never been like that. He has money and power, and he is not hungry for much more. Finally, perhaps one of the most detrimental parts of his death would be that there would be nobody to mediate between the bureaucratic families any longer. The Banu al-Sir, who run the treasury, have a long-standing feud with the Banu al-Rahman, who run the hospitals. He told us that once a month he has dinner with each of them and brokers funding for the hospitals, because both families cannot sit in the same room together without arguing. Without him in the picture, hospitals are more likely to go underfunded and even more kinfolk will die. The Banu al-Muqaddar are the family that run the Grand Library and oversee arcana and restrictions. They are constantly in feud with the scholars who work there. The Banu al-Muqaddar want more restrictions on the knowledge shared with the public, and the Grand Library fights against that. It is the Malik who encourages the Banu al-Muqaddar to be so open. And in the wake of his death, there will be a power vacuum in the city as they all try to adjust. A war will be waged between the Banu Asrar and the Wylde Chamber, which all of us know to be true. It might not even be undesirable to some of us in the room, but it would be potentially devastating to the order of our city. Without the Malik present, chaos would take hold of the city once again and recovery would be difficult. I met eyes with all of my company around the table and held silent agreement with both Nadia and Yusuf. We did not want to go through with it anymore. It would do more harm than good. Yes, maybe the Malik was hasty with his orders, but that violence should not beget a world of chaos. When I looked to Salim to try to gauge her intentions, she refused to look at me. I felt my stomach sink as I saw the corner of her lip upturn in a smile. There was something else on her mind, and it sent a chill through me. The Malik told us that if we were to let him live, we would be punished, but we would not be killed. I thought that was a generous offer considering we were there to take his life. As he was talking about the potential punishments we could see, making sure we would be swayed by how light they were, Salim moved swiftly. The first thing she did was pull the ring from the chain dangling around Yusuf's neck. It snapped and she pointed it at him, utilizing the spirit inside to sever his tie to the pain eater. The moment it happened, the Malik's eyes widened. I stood up as if to grab Salim and stop her, but she ran across the table before I could grab her. With a dagger in her hand, she plunged it into the Malik's throat. He choked out a cry for help and the door to the room burst open. I was frozen as guards ran towards us with swords drawn. I was too stunned to register what was happening and what I needed to do. But when reality hit me, I pulled the glyph I'd carved into a small stone from my pocket and used it. It lit up as I pointed it towards the guards. Each of them froze in place, their swords raised as they were ready to bring them down on all four of us. I told them to stop, drop their weapons, and turn around. They were to stand outside the Malik's door for 5 minutes, and then when they came back in, they would not remember who they saw around the table. For a moment, I did not think it would work. But then they dropped their swords and walked out of the room, closing the door calmly behind them. We did not have time to shout at Salim for her hasty actions before we ran out of the palace and escaped. I suppose we did what we set out to do. But now I see a future where our actions would be devastating for the city, and I wish I had no part. Journal of Salim, unknown titles. I ran out of the palace long before the rest of my company. The truth is, what happens to us now does not matter to me. I know that I have done my sacred duty. The Malik is dead, and that is the task I needed to see through. Sure, perhaps the city is going to see turmoil in the wake of his death. But there are much bigger things coming. Things that no kinfolk here can even begin to understand. I'm surprised the Weaver in the Circle of 1,000 Threads has not already seen that coming. The Malik's death is just one phase of many leading up to this city's destruction. The others could not catch up to me as I ran out of the palace. We pushed past the protesters and I heard them shouting my name because I knew they wanted to tell me how stupid that was. But they don't know anything about me. I kept my information close for a reason, and perhaps that will be a lesson to them in the future. When you are doing something like this, you need to know the kinfolk you are working with. I have written my journals and I'll be giving them to the Grand Library, so the next symposium Idris reads will have the full picture. The new dawn is coming. I'm not one to say, "I told you so." I don't think our city needs those bitter words at this moment, but this is what I've been warning everyone about. The heirs of the New Dawn have ingratiated themselves into our society in a way that we should all be concerned about. Not only did Salim kill the Malik regardless of consequence, she knew someone within the palace. She worked those halls and she was targeted to join these people. There is somebody working among the leaders of our city who is guiding our own kinfolk to work against us. And what is that she says about a new dawn coming? From her journal, it's clear to me now that there is something they are ushering into our city. The Malik is gone, and I fear his words might have been correct. In the days since his death, the city has already fallen into chaos. He was right when he said the hospitals would be underfunded, as funding has already been pulled away. Georgios is now in charge and he doesn't know a thing about ruling. I'm sure you've even seen Vale Chamber members suddenly in his ear. Banu al-Tajir members have gone missing and many suspect they've been drowned by the Dar al-Nar to bring an end to their feud. Thieves, no doubt hired by the Banu al-Muqaddar, have been raiding the Grand Library, attacking guardians of the vault. It's only been days and chaos has already unfolded. I don't know what's going to become of this city in a week's time, and frankly I am afraid to think of it. The Banu Asrar might think they have just carried out a mission, but this is going too far. As of right now, we should not be focusing on tearing each other apart. I remind everyone that we have one common enemy, and that we must band together to fight against it. The heirs of the new dawn. Whatever it is that they are looking for, it is getting closer. I can feel it. We need to act now before it is too late. This account is now entered into the record of the Hall of Echoes. Some of what you have heard tonight is confirmed. Some remains disputed. All of it has been preserved because silence too alters the future. Yet what reaches the Hall of Echoes is only part of the story. Beyond these public accounts, private conversations continue among those who keep watch over Zahra's future. Those who wish to step beyond the gallery may join these conversations through the library's public ledger at patreon.com/echoes of Aporia. Choose your place among Zahra's many peoples. Hear what the public is not meant to hear. Take part in the conversations that shape which stories endure and which are forgotten. Notes from these symposiums and information about our world can be found in the realms of Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. And if this account proves worth remembering, carry it with you. Share it with others. Repeat it faithfully where knowledge is needed. The hall exists so that truth may travel further than silence. I am Idris Nahir, Keeper of Echoes for the Library of Zahra.
No return, no great stay, no new homes where third sides play, no great heroes, no last stand. Leave the place, take who you can. First you watch and second you go. Third you never choose to know. The world warns soft before it screams. It eats the bold who miss the seams. Those who listen, live and tell songs of places that fell to hell.